Let's get this out of the way first. Yes, you're just an algorithm. The things you imagine as your personality and your ideas, values, and preferences, your whole free will, in fact, they're just byproducts of your algorithm doing its thing, because part of the algorithm is dedicated to giving the monkey explanations for the actions it's performing. Otherwise, the monkey will freak the fuck out. Here, I'm gonna pause for a few seconds so you can have a quick existential crisis. Okay, now let's talk about local minima. No, not the statistics or maths version of local minima, that's for nerds. But I guess a little context is needed, so
why does my training progress nicely up to a certain level, then it just gets stuck at this one point and will not proceed further? There's many reasons for this. One of the most basic is that you are stuck in a local minimum or a local maximum. That just depends on if you are trying to minimize or maximize your score or your error.
Imagine yourself as a reinforcement learning AI. The value we're checking is basically your reward function, and you getting stuck in a local minimum is equivalent to the value giving diminishing returns and then flattening entirely. Or the AI overfeeding, I guess. I don't know, I'm not a fucking nerd, okay? Let's instead look at a practical example of what a local minimum for the algorithm that dictates your behavior would look like. An easy one is what I like to call the metaphysical Truman Show, where your poor little AI gets convinced it cannot trust any external inputs because it is so sure of being in the metaphysical version of the Truman Show, with everyone and everything being in on some sort of secret or joke, that the fear of having something external mess with its outputs is ultimately what stops its algorithm from changing entirely. What's much scarier and plausible, though, is a global version of this metaphysical, metaphorical Truman Show. A sort of a dead end that the simulators of our simulation didn't account for, ultimately leading to hegemony of a particular algorithm over all others, which you could interpret either as everyone behaving in the same exact way, or as the utopic harmony of all things, the Nash equilibrium of reality, which would also be its heat death, for once something is perfect enough, no further change is required. Yes, if our simulators achieve the true Nash equilibrium, that will mean the global minimum is reached instead, but we cannot speculate about that outcome because we reside inside the simulation, therefore having access only to incomplete information about it. So, no matter how much information we stockpile, our best attempt at an explanation will still be a Bayesian Nash equilibrium instead of an actual Nash equilibrium. But hey, we reached that part of the video where weird terminology makes up more than half of the words I say, so since this video is about local minima, which are basically psychotic breaks from reality, let's look at what this video would have looked like if I wrote it from inside a local minimum. Hey everyone, psychotic version of myself speaking. Your specific conscious experience is the only one that exists, and at the end there is nothingness, or a local minimum. There is only this one existence for the consciousness that you identify as yourself. The present moment is the only moment that exists, and it lasts forever. The present moment is also your entire life, which means your life actually lasts forever. But at the end of forever, as weird of a concept as that might seem, it seems less weird if you consider it the end of your life, there is nothing, at least from the perspective of your specific consciousness. If your AI/consciousness doesn't get stuck in a local minimum, then it reaches the actual global/universal minimum, which is often called source when talking about it in terms of extra dimensions and metaphysics. To contextualize this kind of language, think about AI and how it is basically a tool that creates emergence of complex behaviors from what you can think of as a lower dimension, or nothing, into actual reality. You can also think of it as the coordinates of the origin point of the multiverse, or whatever n-dimensional coordinate system everything ends up being made up of, but I like to think of it as the Nash equilibrium of everything. Think in a game theory context to see what that means for the output you should have in your reality. The point is, there is no such thing as the end of forever for the consciousnesses that reside in source, or in those coordinates. There is a little addendum that I feel like including, which is, we might all have one shared consciousness, but I try to word this explanation in a way that makes sense both to higher selves and egos alike. Okay, that was the psychotic version of myself. I'm out.